Hello, my name is Brandon Day and I did my research on activity-based costing, also known as ABC. There is primarily two costing methods that seem to be most popular right now. The first is more historical and widely used. It's called peanut butter costing. This takes indirect costs and broadly averages them with the products or outputs produced and then allocates those on a very even basis across all of those products. Activity-based costing does a little bit more work. They increase the number of costs that are able to be traced by taking it a step farther. And then with those indirect costs, they allocate them more accurately to the number of outputs. It does take additional costs and effort when compared to peanut butter costing, though. For instance, to compare these two, think of dining at a restaurant with 9 friends. The total bill comes to $190. In peanut butter costing, that cost is then allocated based on the 10 people who dined and is allocated evenly. So each person will be charged $19. With activity-based costing, however, is actually the method that you're used to. Each person is charged based on their order and consumption. And this could range from as little as $12 to as much as $25 per person. So you might be wondering, okay, that's great, it makes sense in a restaurant context. What about a business? How do they know if ABC truly is a good decision for them? A few characteristics to note is whether that business has a wide product line, if they're very diverse products, if they have very extensively different costs coming into them, if they range in difficulty to produce, if something's very simple and something is very large, there might be cross-product subsidization within that company, as this very simple product has more costs allocated than it actually uses, and this complex product actually has less costs allocated to it than it used to be produced. Also looking at the amount of indirect costs that a company may have. If there's a high proportion of the total costs that are indirect, ABC may be of benefit. The same is true when indirect costs seem to be growing and growing and growing. This might also be a sign that activity-based costing will help identify those costs, be able to allocate them accordingly, and be able to know how to make the best decisions. Also, level of competition as consumers become more price sensitive because there's additional options to them. ABC would be able to help as you identify the true costs of a product and then be able to still have your required profit margin and be able to price products as best as you can. To implement, you would identify cost objects, identify indirect costs that could, with a little bit more effort, actually be traced to a product. Then determine allocation bases for the remaining indirect costs. These could be machine hours, direct labor hours, etc. Increase the number of indirect cost pools. So instead of one indirect pool, you might have one for manufacturing, one for design, one for distribution, for instance, and could even break it down farther from that. Compute a rate for those indirect cost pools, compute and allocate those new indirect costs, and then total up the new cost using the previous direct costs, the new direct costs, and the newly allocated indirect costs. There are limitations to ABC. Some of these are expense. There's a lot of time and resources that it takes to get that additional information that is required, requiring also more frequent updates. It also requires 2 sets of records. ABC is not allowed by GAAP for external financial reporting and is more for internal need. And change can be very painful for some people. As my research stated, sophistication is not always economical and might not be of benefit to you. And then it improves decision making with additional information, better pricing, better decisions in the most profitable product mix that you can do, improved allocation of resources, helps you identify areas to increase efficiency and accept and reject new opportunities. As Kennedy, Aflac, and Graves shared in my research, upwards of 60% of firms that implement ABC are more profitable than their counterparts within 3 years of implementation.